Hey, I don't know if I'm gonna do anything with this video. If you're watching it now, then it means I ended up deciding to post it on YouTube. I've been struggling with my mental health. It's quite loud outside with all the birds and the insects and the traffic and everything. There's a bee making a lot of noise next to me. I guess I just wanted to come on here to share how I'm feeling in case it helps. Yeah, I've been struggling lately. I just feel like I'm drowning, to be honest. That's the word that keeps coming back to me over and over again. This feeling of constantly drowning in my life. It's not just the burnout, it's also the trauma and stuff that keeps happening, that keeps triggering my trauma, which keeps my nervous system in a hypervigilant state, a chronic state of fight or flight, if you will, which means that my nervous system is chronically dysregulated, which then makes me more prone to sensory overstimulation. It's just a vicious cycle, you know? But I've been feeling really tired lately, but not tired in the sense of not having energy. I feel tired emotionally. I feel a bit depressed, to be honest. I feel stuck and I don't see a way out. Every time I'm able to regain some spoons, I either try to live a little and have to pay the price for it, or something happens and my trauma gets triggered, and then I have to pay the price for that as well. And so my nervous system never has a chance to feel safe long enough for me to fully recover from burnout and get out of this state. And so I feel stuck, and I'm in this limbo of wanting to do more, wanting to feel alive, wanting to lead, you know, a fulfilled, exciting life, but not having the spoons to tolerate any of it. A week ago, it was warm, and I was like, let's go into town. It was like 9 p.m. I made a short about it. It was so overstimulating. Gosh, I'm sorry, it's so noisy outside. And it's Sunday, which is usually the quietest day of the week, but I got so overstimulated from all the people and all the noise and all the lights. And then that felt like a setback. Felt like I had to recover several days afterwards. I don't know if I've fully recovered. I don't know anything anymore. Sorry if you can hear my cat meowing in the background. He's very vocal. Yes, you are? Yeah? What do you want to say? And then after that happened, there was a bit of drama with my mother-in-law, which I'm not gonna get into in detail because it's not really relevant, and also I want to protect my privacy. But I mentioned in past videos that I took some distance from my in-laws since Christmas because I couldn't handle to keep interacting with them the way I used to through WhatsApp messages and weekly phone calls with my mother-in-law and stuff. It was just too much. And also I didn't appreciate the way that they behaved at Christmas. And so yeah, since Christmas I haven't talked to them. And of course, because I didn't give them an explanation, I didn't give them context, I knew that they weren't necessarily gonna understand, and I didn't care if they understood or not. I just needed to do it. But I knew that at some point there would be some kind of, maybe not backlash, but I knew that at some point they were going to react to it in one way or another. Of course, me being a bit naive and overly optimistic sometimes, I was hoping that reaction would be positive, or at least neutral, you know? But it wasn't. Essentially what's happening is my partner and myself are setting boundaries with my in-laws to protect and preserve ourselves because they're not very healthy to be around. Personally, I don't intend to see my father-in-law ever again because he's very abusive, and I'm not willing to keep tolerating it, keep being a victim of it, or keep witnessing my partner being a victim of it. And my mother-in-law is taking what I would call a wrong turn. She used to be a lot healthier, but for the last couple of years she's been unpacking a lot of childhood trauma, really fucked up things from her childhood. I don't know if her psychiatrist is not handling the trauma work well, because I know that if you don't have the right therapist then you can get re-traumatized, or if it's just the sheer toll of processing all that trauma. But she keeps getting worse and worse in her behavior. And I mean, she always had like a predisposition. I'm not gonna lie and say like she used to be so healthy and now she's not. She always had like a bit of a manipulative tendency, but it was something that my partner could keep in check, if you will, until now. And everything, just basically all her toxic traits have been amplified these last couple of years, and it makes her very difficult to deal with. And so my partner had a couple of pretty intense conversations with her this past week, in which she played the victim and didn't take accountability for anything and tried to guilt trip him and manipulate him and gaslight him and like dismiss and minimize his feelings, which in itself wasn't a very nice thing to be a witness of, even though I wasn't a direct witness of it, but I overheard a few things, and then my partner told me a few things afterwards. And one thing that came up, that keeps coming up since Christmas, it's not the first time, but it's something that's been keeping coming up in the conversation, is basically that I'm being scapegoated by my mother-in-law so that she doesn't have to face the consequences of her actions, and she doesn't have to face the reality of things. So like I said, my father-in-law is very abusive, and he's abusive verbally, not physically. But I've known my in-laws for 9.5 years at this point. Ever since I've known them, my father-in-law, my partner's stepdad, has always been a bully, basically. He will verbally attack my partner and myself and my mother-in-law, infantilize us and insult us and disrespect our boundaries and all that good stuff. And for the last 9.5 years that I've known them, we've just been making excuses for him so he doesn't have to take accountability for his actions. I couldn't see it. We couldn't see it for a long time. And I know it's because of my own trauma from my own family, my own dysfunctional family that I come from, because it was just replaying old patterns. But over the years it became clearer and clearer that his behavior was not okay, that we felt like we were constantly walking on eggshells around him, and that it was just not safe. And as a result, I felt like I couldn't unmask because I can't unmask around unsafe people. And of course, I felt like I was the problem for not being able to unmask around him. So in the last 9.5 years, there have been lots of instances where I got angry at my father-in-law and even at my mother-in-law for the ways that they treated my partner and the way that they treated me. And we've had lots of arguments, and we even had like one massive, really bad argument about 4 years ago that I talked about in some videos. So it's nothing new. And last Christmas, once again, my father-in-law attacked my partner, and so I defended him. Even though I was in burnout and it was already all too much, and I was trying to avoid interacting with my in-laws, I was like, no one's doing anything. Like, we're all tolerating this behavior once again. So I did what I've done many times before, which is to raise my voice and say, like, don't talk to him like this, basically. You don't come to our house and tell us what to do. Just defending my partner. Oh, and then he insulted me and told me to shut up and put my headphones back on. Oh my god, I just had to wait like, I don't know, 5-10 minutes for the bells to stop ringing. Since Christmas, The argument has been coming up over and over again from my mother-in-law that I traumatized her by raising my voice when I defended my partner against my father-in-law. And the thing is, she's been using that as a manipulative tool to scapegoat me as the problem, and it's becoming clearer and clearer, especially since she's also saying things like that I'm ghosting them, that I ghosted them at Christmas, and that I've been ghosting them ever since, which is incorrect, because ghosting implies that I ignored a message that was directed at me, which I didn't. I just stopped taking part in phone calls and on the WhatsApp group. And the WhatsApp group has since died because it would seem that I, as usual in all of my relationships, was doing all the work, all the effort, all the heavy lifting. And when I stop doing that, of course, everything stops. So the distance that I've been taking to protect myself is now I'm now being blamed for, as like I'm ghosting them, which means that she is disregarding all the explanations that I give, all the effort I put into trying to explain my burnout. No, she's choosing to interpret it as I'm ghosting them. And she's putting all the blame on me and keeps coming back to the fact that I traumatized her when I raised my voice to protect my partner. And I'm not criticizing the fact that she was traumatized, if she really was, because I know she has trauma and stuff. But the problem is, it wasn't me raising my voice that was the issue. I was reacting to her partner being abusive. For 20 years they've been together. For 20 years he's been abusive. For 20 years he's been a bully. And she keeps excusing him because he works a lot and we can't talk to him or whatever. Like, she keeps finding excuses for him, tolerates his abusive behavior. But when I speak up about it, I become the problem because she's fawning. She's siding with the abuser, with the oppressor, which is her partner, because that's what she learned to do because of her childhood trauma. And so now I'm indirectly suffering the consequences of that, being scapegoated, which reopens old wounds for me, because once again, I feel like I'm being stabbed in the back by people who can't take responsibility for their actions and who can't face the reality of things and who'd rather bury their head in the sand. And so they're using me as an easy target. And that's what I experienced in my own family my whole life. And once again, it feels like I'm being backstabbed and scapegoated to suit someone else's selfish interest, and it feels like I'm being blamed and punished for finally putting my needs first, finally doing something good for me, which was to take some distance. I understand that it might be misinterpreted, especially since I didn't give any explanation or context for it, but also I did explain a lot about my autistic burnout, and she is aware of my trauma background, my traumatic background, and my childhood trauma and everything. So it just, at this point, it just seems like she just wants a target, and so she's scapegoating me, framing me as the problem to avoid taking responsibility in conversations that my partner had with her about her own problematic behavior. And so of course my partner's not falling for it. He knows I'm not the problem in this situation, but this just created a whole lot of drama, and that I felt dragged into without my consent. And she is talking about me behind my back, which I don't appreciate. A month ago, for my birthday, she didn't wish me a happy birthday to me directly. She said it to my partner, so she's doing some triangulation by using my partner as an intermediary, because she's afraid of conflict. And so she's being sneaky and a little bit of a coward by saying all these things about me behind my back to my partner, because it's safer than saying it to my face, because she knows that I wouldn't let her say all these things and that I would defend myself, and she's afraid of that. And so it just feels like a big betrayal, to be honest. So that's not been easy, because it does remind me of, like I said, it reopens old wounds. So that triggered my trauma a lot. It brought up a lot of difficult emotions and just not been feeling very safe. I've just had trauma response after trauma response after trauma response. I'm not sleeping well. I struggle to fall asleep, and then until about 4 a.m. I'll keep dozing off and waking up feeling panicked for no reason in particular, just having a lot of anxiety at night and low mood. And then after 4 a.m. is when the exhaustion takes over and I'm finally able to rest. So that's been great. Also, there's been the heat. It's been very warm. I don't do well in the heat, and so we had to sleep in the downstairs bedroom a couple of nights because it's cooler. And so that's a lot of change for me to handle, even though I tried to make it as cozy as possible. So there's just been a lot. Like I said, stuff like that keeps happening that disrupts my burnout recovery, and I can't tolerate much. But I'm tired of not doing anything. I'm tired of this life that I've had for the past year, and I'm really trying to do the thing of like having a fulfilling life, even with burnout, like trying to make do with it and not waiting for my life to start again. But it's really hard for me not to feel like my life's been on pause for a year. It's been put on pause, put on hold, because every time I try to do something that's a bit new or that's a bit exciting or meaningful or whatever, my nervous system is like, nope, we can't do that. We can't do that. And so there's very few things that I can tolerate. And again, I've been talking about this several times on my channel, but this thing of like, I'm tired of doing the things that I can tolerate, and the things that I really want to do are things that I cannot tolerate. So I get bored very easily. But if I do the things that I can't tolerate because I'm too bored and I'm like, fuck it, then I have to pay the price, and it just postpones my burnout recovery by a few days, a few weeks, a few months, who knows. And so it feels like this endless cycle, this never-ending cycle. At least now I have more physical energy, which is good, also because I've been eating more because I wasn't eating enough. So I have more physical energy. But when it comes to my nervous system, can't handle much. My mental health hasn't been great as a consequence lately. I'm going through something really difficult, which I'm hoping might only last a few days, but I need a lot of alone time. But when I'm alone, I get lonely. It's been very difficult for me these past few days to tolerate my partner's presence, no matter how much I love him, because it counts as socializing. And when you don't have the spoons for it, it's too much. Even in being in his presence is too much, even if we don't talk. But also, when I spend too much time alone, I get extremely lonely and sad. So I don't know what to do, and we don't know how to connect non-verbally. Like, we have a really hard time. If I'm in his presence, I have the urge to communicate verbally. I can't help it. So the only way to save my energy is to spend time away from him. And usually that looks like spending a few hours on my own every day. But lately I've been needing more than that. I've been needing entire days of solitude, which is not feasible with our current way of life, especially since my partner isn't currently working. He's gonna start a new job in a few weeks, so hopefully that should help. But in the meantime, he's not working, I'm not working. We're around each other all day, every day. And because he's the only person in my life, and I'm the only person in his life, kind of, especially since he's been having a hard time with his parents, that means we're each other's only company, which puts a lot of weight on one another, a lot of social responsibility. We're in this codependent situation where our default is to spend every waking moment with each other, which I enjoy 99% of the time. Like, we wouldn't still be together if we didn't enjoy each other's company. But it has to be a conscious effort for me to be like, no, I need time away. I need time alone. It doesn't come naturally. I have to force it, because my default state is to be around him all the time. And my nervous system is like, I can't handle that. So it's been feeling like, especially yesterday and today, it's been feeling like too much being around him, being under the same roof. And I hate feeling that way. We might sleep in a different room for a few nights. He might even leave the house for a few days. We don't know yet what we're gonna do, but I know that I'm able to recover really well when he's away. Whenever in the past he would leave to go on holiday somewhere or because of something for his work or whatever, I would feel horrible at being separated from him, and then I would have a great time. And then when he would come back, I would feel all these complicated emotions because I was like, I love him, but also I'm sad that he's coming back, and I couldn't understand it. And so he felt rejected by it in the past when we didn't know I was autistic, and I felt guilty for feeling these things. And now I know it's because I was craving that alone time. And when I finally had it, my brain was like, more, give me more. And I didn't understand that, and I felt like a bad person because of it. Last November, when my partner went to Disneyland Paris with his parents, and I was left at home for a few days on my own, and I was in the acute phase of burnout, so barely leaving my bed. I was really scared of it at first, and turns out I had a great time, and I was able to recover so much from, it's not just being alone and not interacting with someone, it's also not having to worry about anyone else's needs and feelings, only having to think about myself and what I'm gonna eat and what I'm gonna do without taking anyone else into consideration. That's a huge load off of my mental load, you know? And so I've been craving that lately, especially these past few days. I've been craving being alone for days, not talking to anyone, not taking anyone else into consideration. But also I get very lonely at the thought of it. And even if I don't have the energy to be around my partner, I can't help craving his presence. I don't really know what to do. I don't really know how to live for myself, you know? We don't know how to live for ourselves, you know, because we're so codependent. Anything we don't do together has to be a conscious effort, you know what I mean? I have to make a conscious effort, a conscious decision to go do something on my own. It doesn't come naturally because our default is to be kids together. And so decision making is hard when your brain is tired. And decision making takes spoons, which is why autistic people thrive so much on routine. It's because it takes away some of the decision making that would happen on a daily basis otherwise. And so for me, not spending every waking moment with my partner takes a lot of decision making that I don't have the energy for a lot of the time. And so I automatically stay in that default state of spending every moment with him, which drains me, and it's just a vicious cycle. I know I'm asking too much of my brain right now and of my nervous system because my short-term memory has been shit these past few days. It's difficult for me to hold onto a thought. My focus hasn't been great. I often say I don't have ADHD, but ever since I've been in burnout, it's felt like I have an ADHD brain because of the struggles I have with my cognitive skills and my executive dysfunction. Makes me feel like I have ADHD even though I don't, because obviously ADHD is lifelong, whereas these things I've only been experiencing for a short amount of time. It's just a regression in my skills that comes with burnout. But yeah, my cognitive skills have been terrible, and my sensory issues are worse. Very, very sensitive to light. I get easily overstimulated by sounds, and like I said, the heat. Thankfully it's cooler today, but yeah, I just know that my nervous system is overloaded because of all these things. That those are just signals that I'm not functioning in the way that I need right now. The thing is, whenever I read things about autistic burnout and what to do to come out of it, I read things like dropping as many responsibilities as possible and like socializing as little as possible and all that stuff. And it's funny because in my head, whenever I read that, I always associate socializing with masking or like being around people other than my partner. Whenever I read those things about try to avoid socializing when you're in autistic burnout, for some reason I never included my partner in that. I never considered that what I was doing on a daily basis, living under the same roof as my partner, interacting with him, counted as socializing. When I was like, I don't understand, like I don't feel like I'm doing too much. Like just the mere fact of being around my partner and interacting with him on a daily basis is a lot for my brain to handle. Speaking, communicating verbally has felt very draining lately, and that's because it's not natural for autistic brains. Some autistic people are non-verbal for life. Some autistic people will lose the ability to speak when in shutdowns or in burnout. For me, thankfully, I'm not someone who ever loses the ability to speak completely, but when my brain is overloaded, it becomes very taxing for me to speak. I can do it technically, but it's very taxing, and I can feel the energy draining out of my body with every word that comes out of my mouth, especially when it's a back and forth conversation. I mean, this is draining, what I'm doing here, talking to the camera. It's draining, but it's just a one-way conversation. But a back and forth conversation where your brain has to interpret what the other person is saying, translate that in your mind, and then formulate a response. And even if you don't mask, there's still some element of like choosing the right tone and all of these things when you're in burnout, when you're functioning at low capacity. Those things take a huge toll on your energy levels. It's very difficult for me to speak, and yet that's the main way that we communicate as a couple. So it's been very difficult trying to make space for other ways of communicating and other ways of connecting in non-verbal ways, because it doesn't feel natural. So I'm trying to figure all that out, feeling a little bit desperate that I'll never come out of this, that I'll always be stuck in a never-ending cycle of burnout. When I'm trying my best to stay positive, everything feels like too much right now. Any task, any chore that I have to do feels like too much. Feels like I have way too much on my plate. It's very, very difficult to keep on top of things around the house. It feels like a constant battle and a constant struggle to keep ourselves fed, to do the things that need to be done in daily life. Like I said, I keep coming back to this image of drowning. I feel like I am constantly gasping for air, trying my best to keep my head out of the water, but the waves keep coming, keep swallowing me. And that's not a sustainable way to live. That's where I'm at. The key is to keep going forward. That's the only option. Keep surviving. Let's survive another day.